Hello and welcome to the latest in URM's series of webinars. Today we're going to be looking at SOC 2 audits and how to achieve a successful outcome. My name's Lisa Dargan, I'm a director at URM and I'm joined by Chris Hayes, one of our senior consultants who I will introduce to you in a moment. So let's start with the agenda. Just to make sure we're all on the same page and we all have the same understanding, we'll start with what is SOC 2 and then we'll look at some of the benefits. But the bulk of today, we are drilling into how do you ensure a successful SOC 2 audit outcome? What does that look like? What are some of the things you need to consider? How do you prepare? And we're going to be going through that in some detail. So before we start, just very briefly, for those of you that aren't familiar with URM, this year is our 20th birthday in June, so we've been established for 19 years, and we look to combine effectively a GRC approach alongside our cyber team and pull in our technical expertise, which is quite relevant particularly to SOC 2. The main area that we really focus in is around information security, and that includes the likes, those you may be familiar with this, of ISO 27001, CC+, and SOC 2 is a key part of that. And I think, Chris, it's fair to say we've probably worked a lot more on SOC 2 in the last 12, 18 months than we have done over the last few years.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
So we've got a lot of experience with SOC 2 that we will be addressing today during this webinar event. So let me introduce Chris. So I'm very fortunate today. Chris spends most of his time with clients and we have dragged him away from clients today to get him to share his experience on today's webinar. So Chris has got over 15 years of information security experience, and without trying to age him, 30 years of IT experience. Chris's specialisms include SOC 2, ISO 27001 and PCI. And just to put some perspective around it, Chris is a CISM and a CISA in addition, as well as a qualified PCI QSA. So Chris has got an awful lot of information security experience and brings that to SOC 2 to give you a very unique but pragmatic and appropriate view. So Chris, let's dive in, and just to make sure we're on the same page, because I know I personally get quite confused sometimes between 27 and SOC 2 and accreditation, compliance, certification, etc. So drilling in, what is SOC 2?
Yeah, so basically to start from first principles, organisations that receive services which involve the management, the processing of their data, understandably are quite keen to have some sort of assurance about the information security controls that those supplier organisations have in place. And essentially, SOC 2 has been put in place to provide some formalised assurance for client organisations to understand exactly what information security controls their supplier organisations have in place, and therefore how they're able to protect that organisation's information.
So let me just understand this. I know we're going to talk about scoping in detail, but in effect, if I'm delivering a service to a number of organisations, any of those might want that level of assurance from me as to, I suppose, the information security I have around that service. But typically it's about the service you deliver, potentially, as opposed to the whole organisation.
Yes, that's absolutely a key aspect. For those of you that have got some familiarity with something like ISO 27001, where generally the assumption is that you're going to utilise 27001 across your entire organisation, SOC 2 is very service based. So there's absolutely no issue or challenge in you as an organisation just looking to have a SOC 2 report for a single service, or maybe even having multiple SOC 2 reports for multiple services, but it is 100% service based, and that's a key thing to remember when we talk about the structure of the SOC 2 report and some of the evidence that you need to be delivering in this space.
Okay, and just so I understand, when you talk about the report, you don't get a certificate like you would do with 27001 or other standards. And do you provide your report, warts and all, to your clients? Is that kind of what it's there to do?
Yeah. As a consultant, it's like I get sometimes a little bit grumpy with organisations when they start talking about what do we need to do to pass SOC 2. SOC 2 essentially is an auditing standard. So fundamentally, the output of a SOC 2 audit is a SOC 2 report, and you will always get a SOC 2 report, regardless of how mature or indeed immature the auditors find your controls and the evidence you have associated with those controls. Obviously, when that report comes out, that report can have a number of findings in it. It can be a very clean report, what we call an unqualified report, potentially with no exceptions in it, or it can be a report which either has exceptions in it, whereby it's talking about a particular area of control, I don't know, something like change management, and saying that the auditors couldn't evidence that you had an effective change management process in place. Or there's the concept of exceptions, which are more point issues around a particular control. So when they were looking at a sample of change records, they found one change record which didn't have, for example, testing information associated with it.